Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the second video in our astrology series where we're breaking down the fundamentals of reading a birth chart. In the last video, we explored the houses and the zodiac signs. Today, we're diving into some of the core components that bring your chart to life, the planets, aspects, and degrees. Once we've covered this, we'll put it all together by analyzing a real birth chart example. So, without further ado, let's begin with the planets, the key players in your astrological story. In astrology, the term planet refers to celestial bodies that influence human behavior and events. This includes the Sun, the Moon, and Pluto. The planets are typically considered in the following order: the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These 10 celestial bodies are the core players in any birth chart. Each represents a specific aspect of human experience, from identity and emotions to love, communication, personal growth, and transformation. In addition to the planets, we'll also touch on other key points in astrology, such as the Midheaven and the North and South nodes, which offer insight into destiny, karma, and life direction. There are also asteroids like Chiron, Ceres, and Vesta, which can add rich layers of meaning to a chart. However, for now we'll keep our focus on the fundamentals, the planets, and the ruleships. This will help us build a solid foundation before diving into more advanced topics in future videos. The Sun represents our core self, our essence, will, and sense of identity. It answers one of astrology's most fundamental questions: who am I becoming in this life? When someone says, "I'm a Virgo," they're usually referring to their sun sign, as it reflects the part of us that feels most central and defining. However, it's important to remember that we are much more than our sun sign alone. The moon, rising sign, planets, houses, and aspects all work together to form a rich, nuanced portrait of who we are. Still, the sun remains the anchor of the birth chart. It embodies a part of us that wants to shine, grow, and fulfill our purpose. It's the energy we're learning to express more fully as we evolve through life. Some keywords for the sun are identity, vitality, motivation, ego, self-worth, purpose, creativity, and self-expression. The moon represents our emotional self, our instincts, inner world, and deep need for comfort and security. It answers the question, how do I feel and what do I need to feel safe? When we speak about emotional reactions or how we nurture ourselves and others, we're often tapping into our moon sign. It reflects the part of us that is the most sensitive, instinctive, and intimately personal. The moon reveals our emotional habits, childhood conditioning, and the automatic responses we carry into adulthood. It governs how we process feelings, seek care, and create emotional safety. While the sun shows who we're becoming, the moon shows how we cope, soothe, and connect on a deeply human level. Some keywords for the moon are emotions, intuition, nurturing, motherhood, habits, instincts, comfort, security, emotional memory, and the subconscious. Mercury represents our mind and communication, how we think, learn, and express ourselves. It answers the question, how do I process information and share my ideas? When we talk about the way someone speaks, writes, or makes decisions, we're often referring to their Mercury sign. This placement reflects the part of us that is curious, analytical, and mentally agile. Mercury governs our learning style, mental habits, and the way we connect with others through language and ideas. It also influences how we organize thoughts, solve problems, and navigate the world intellectually, from everyday conversations to complex reasoning. If you've watched the first video, you might be wondering why Mercury's themes sound so similar to the third house, Virgo, and Gemini. That's no coincidence. Each planet rules a sign, and each sign rules a house. Astrology is all about the interplay of these energies. Some keywords for Mercury are communication, thinking, learning, curiosity, intellect, expression, analysis, adaptability, and reasoning. Venus represents our values, love, and aesthetics, how we relate to others, what we find beautiful, and what we desire. It answers the question, what do I love, and how do I attract what I want? When we talk about how someone expresses affection, what they're drawn to, or their style of relating, we're often describing their Venus sign. This placement reflects the part of us that is charming, pleasure-seeking, and oriented towards connection and harmony. Venus governs our approach to love, relationships, creativity, and the things we hold dear. It also reveals our personal tastes in people, art, beauty, and even lifestyle, as well as how we express affection and attract what we value. Some keywords for Venus are love, beauty, harmony, pleasure, value, relationships, connection, attraction, creativity, and sexuality. Mars represents our drive, energy, and ambition, how we take action, assert ourselves, and pursue our goals. It answers the question, what motivates me and how do I fight for what I want? When we talk about how someone handles challenges, expresses anger, or channels passion, we're often referring to their Mars sign. This placement reflects a part of us that is dynamic, courageous, and competitive. Mars governs how we initiate action, respond to conflict, and go after what we desire. It also rules our physical energy and drive, showing where we feel most compelled to assert our will and make things happen. Some keywords for Mars are action, drive, passion, desire, courage, assertiveness, competition, energy, ambition, and willpower. Jupiter, known as the Great Benefic, represents growth, expansion, and optimism, how we seek meaning, abundance, and opportunities for learning. It answers the question, where do I find luck, faith, and personal growth? When we talk about how someone embraces life's possibilities, pursues wisdom, or expresses generosity, we're often describing their Jupiter sign. This placement reflects the part of us that is hopeful, expansive, and philosophical. Jupiter governs our desire to grow, as well as our faith in life's bigger picture. Jupiter also rules long-distance travel, higher education, belief systems, and the principles that guide our personal code. In traditional astrology, Jupiter can represent the husband in the birth chart, while the wife is often represented by Venus. Some keywords for Jupiter are growth, expansion, optimism, luck, faith, wisdom, abundance, learning, and philosophy. Saturn represents our structure, discipline, and responsibility, how we navigate limitations, challenges, and life's lessons. It answers the question, where do I need to work hard, set boundaries, and grow through experience? When we talk about someone's sense of duty, perseverance, or approach to challenges and authority, we're often referring to their Saturn sign. This placement reflects a part of us that is serious, disciplined, and patient. Saturn governs maturity, ambition, self-control, and the lessons we learn through effort and responsibility. It also highlights areas where we may encounter obstacles, teaching us resilience and the rewards of persistence. Some keywords for Saturn are discipline, responsibility, structure, patience, limitations, authority, ambition, maturity, and self-control. Uranus represents our innovation, rebellion, and sudden change, how we break free from convention and embrace originality. It answers the question, where do I seek freedom and revolution in my life? When we talk about someone's unique ideas, their desire to change the status quo, or the unexpected shifts that shape their life, we're often referring to their Uranus sign. This placement reflects the part of us that is inventive, unpredictable, and forward-thinking. Uranus governs breakthroughs, technology, and the expression of individuality. It also highlights the ways we innovate, rebel, and envision the future beyond tradition. Some keywords for Uranus are innovation, freedom, rebellion, originality, change, technology, individuality, vision, and progress. Neptune is a profoundly abstract planet, symbolizing our dreams, intuition, and spiritual connection, how we experience imagination, inspiration, and transcendence. It answers the question, where do I connect with the unseen and mystical? When we speak of someone's creativity, empathy, or sense of mystery and idealism, we're often referring to their Neptune placement. This part of us is compassionate, intuitive, and ethereal. Neptune governs spirituality, dreams, illusions, and artistic expression, but also escapism, deception, and potential addictive tendencies, often highlighting areas of life we may tend to view through rose-colored glasses. Some keywords for Neptune are dreams, intuition, spirituality, imagination, compassion, illusion, empathy, mysticism, and artistry. Pluto represents our transformations, power, and regeneration, how we confront deep change, subconscious forces, and cycles of death and rebirth. It answers the question, where do I face my deepest fears and emerge stronger? When we talk about someone's capacity for profound change, intensity, or their connection to power and healing, we're often referring to their Pluto sign. This placement reflects the part of us that is transformative, resilient, and magnetic. Pluto governs destruction and renewal, hidden truths, and psychological depth. It also highlights the ways we confront challenges, release what no longer serves us, and harness our inner power for growth. Some keywords for Pluto are transformation, power, regeneration, intensity, depth, rebirth, psychology, control, and healing. Now that we've explored the planets, it's important to understand that each one is traditionally associated with at least one zodiac sign. This relationship is known as rulership, and the most significant one is the chart ruler. The chart ruler is the planet that governs the zodiac sign on your ascendant. It serves as a guiding influence, shaping how the energy of your entire birth chart is expressed. However, the rulership goes beyond just the ascendant. Each of the 12 houses in your chart has a planetary ruler, and examining this can provide deeper insight into specific areas of life. For example, the ruler of the 7th house often symbolizes the type of partner you're drawn to or the qualities you seek in relationships. Here's a list of the planetary rulerships for each zodiac sign. Aries is ruled by Mars, Taurus is ruled by Venus, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, Cancer is ruled by the Moon, Leo is ruled by the Sun, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, Libra is ruled by Venus. Scorpio is traditionally ruled by Mars, the modern ruler is Pluto. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Saturn, the modern ruler is Uranus. Pisces is traditionally ruled by Jupiter, the modern ruler is Neptune. In astrology, retrograde motion occurs when a planet appears to move backwards in the sky from our viewpoint on Earth. This is an optical illusion caused by the relative positions and speeds of Earth and the other planets. When a planet is retrograde in your birth chart, usually marked by an R next to the planet, its energy tends to be expressed in a more internalized, reflective, or unconventional way. Rather than flowing outward naturally, this energy turns inward, encouraging you to revisit, re-examine, and work through its themes on a deeper level. Retrograde planets invite patience, self-reflection, and a deeper understanding of the areas of life they influence. For example, someone with Mercury retrograde may be thoughtful and introspective in how they communicate, needing more time to process ideas internally, while a Venus retrograde can indicate complex or evolving feelings about love, beauty, and self-worth that deepen over time. Now that we've finished exploring the planets, we're going to shift our focus to the lunar nodes and the Midheaven. The North Node and the South Node represent our karmic path and soul's growth, where we're coming from and where we're headed in this lifetime. They answer the question, what lessons am I here to learn, and what patterns am I meant to release? The South Node reflects your past, qualities, habits, and experiences that feel familiar and comfortable. These are often rooted in past lives or early conditioning. It reveals where you tend to fall back on old patterns and automatic behaviors. The North Node, on the other hand, points towards your future, the new skills, attitudes, and direction your soul is evolving toward. It calls you to step out of your comfort zone and into your higher purpose. Together, the nodes create a cosmic balance between what you already know and what you are here to become. They serve as a guide for your evolution, both spiritual and personal. The Midheaven, or MC, represents our public life, career, and reputation, how we want to be seen by the world, and the legacy we want to leave. It answers the question, what's my life's work, and how do I achieve my highest ambitions? The Midheaven shows our professional path, reputation, and the roles we naturally step into when it comes to leadership and responsibility. As the peak of the birth chart, it reflects our goals, aspirations, and the mark we hope to make in the world. The Midheaven sign influences the style and direction of our career, as well as how others perceive our achievements, authority, and public image. I also have a video that dives into all placements of the nodes in Midheaven in the birth chart. Feel free to check it out for deeper insights. Since this is a lot of information to take in, let's pause here and explore a birth chart example together to see how these ideas actually play out in real life. Let's begin by examining my birth chart using the Placida system. I created this one myself, but there are plenty of websites that can calculate your chart for free. We'll start with the big three, the Sun, the rising sign, and the Moon. These three are considered the core pillars of the personality. They shape how we express ourselves, how others initially perceive us, and how we instinctively process emotions. The Sun is easy to spot. It's right here in the 5th house in Virgo. It's placed perfectly between Venus and Mars, which immediately stands out, because this alignment can suggest a life path focused on balancing and integrating both feminine and masculine energies. When 3 or more planets are clustered in the same zodiac sign, it's known as a stellium. This concentrated energy significantly amplifies the influence of both the sign and the house it occupies, turning them into major focal points in the birth chart. These areas often represent recurring themes or lessons that play a central role throughout a person's life. In this case, Virgo becomes especially prominent. Its qualities of precision, service, and refinement are likely to play a central role in this person's life. With the stellium falling in the 5th house, that area of the chart also gains added significance. This suggests a life path deeply connected to creativity, self-expression, and joy, possibly even involving teaching, performance, or working with children. A stellium amplifies the traits of the sign it's in, sometimes to the point where they can overshadow the sun sign, especially if the sun is located somewhere else in the chart. But that's not the case here. In this chart, the sun is part of the stellium, which means it's not being overshadowed, it's being illuminated even more. In other words, the sun's qualities, identity, purpose, and vitality are supercharged by the concentrated energy of the surrounding planets. Reading a birth chart is all about mixing different energies. For example, with the sun in Virgo in the 5th house, we see someone whose core identity is deeply tied to creative expression, personal joy, and purposeful contribution, but all filtered through Virgo's lens of refinement, service, and intentionality. The 5th house is a realm of play, creativity, romance, and performance, and when the sun is placed here, it often indicates a person who shines when they are creating, teaching, or inspiring others, especially through skills they hone with care. Virgo adds a grounded, thoughtful energy, suggesting that creativity isn't just spontaneous, it's offered with meaning. This combination brings a natural gift for channeling joy into something useful. Now let's turn our attention to the ascendant, also known as a rising sign. This point sets the tone for how we present ourselves to the world. It influences our outward behavior, the first impressions we make, and how we initiate new experiences. In this chart, we find a Taurus rising, which brings a grounded, calm, and steady presence. Taurus ascendants are often perceived as reliable, soothing, and sometimes a bit reserved upon first meeting. There's a natural appreciation for comfort, beauty, and stability, along with a tendency to approach life with patience, deliberation, and a strong sense of purpose. Looking more closely, we see that Gemini also co-rules the 1st house, adding a layer of curiosity, mental agility, and adaptability to the outward personality. While Taurus brings stillness and strength, Gemini introduces movement and communication. Now let's talk about the chart ruler, which is a planet that rules the rising sign. In this case, that's Venus, the ruler of Taurus. And interestingly, Venus is right in the middle of the 5th house stellium we discussed earlier. This makes Venus not only the chart ruler, but also a central figure in this person's creative and emotional identity, giving even more importance and weight to the themes of love, beauty, creativity, and personal expression. Now let's look at the moon, which represents our emotional world, instincts, and how we both nurture and feel nurtured. In this chart, the moon is in Aries, placed in the 12th house, a combination that blends the bold fire of Aries with the emotional depth and mystery of the 12th house. An Aries moon is emotionally direct, instinctive, and independent. This person likely experiences emotions quickly and intensely, with a strong urge to act on their feelings rather than reflect or dwell. However, with the moon tucked away in the 12th house, much of this emotional fire may be hidden, internalized, or suppressed, only surfacing in private or under pressure. This placement often points to someone who is emotionally private, sometimes even guarded from their own feelings, and who needs quiet, solitude, or creative outlets to fully process what they feel. Interestingly, the moon forms a trine to Saturn, located in Sagittarius in the 7th house. This aspect brings stability, emotional maturity, and a sense of responsibility to an otherwise fiery and hidden moon. With Saturn in the 7th house, this emotional steadiness often expresses itself in one-on-one relationships. This person may take partnerships seriously and approach emotional connections with caution, loyalty, and a desire for mutual growth. They likely value trust, long-term commitment, and shared responsibility in close bonds. This example is meant to show why aspects are so important in a birth chart. They are the communication between planets. So, let's return to theory and explore the astrological aspects and degrees. Aspects are the relationship between planets in a birth chart and how their energies interact with one another. Think of aspects like conversations between planets. Some are effortless and harmonious, while others create tension or challenge. These planetary dialogues shape the unique tone, complexity, and rhythm of an individual's chart. They reveal how different parts of our personality work together, clash, or push us to grow. Let's break down the major aspects, which are the primary angles between planets that show how their energies blend, conflict, or support each other. An opposition occurs when two planets are roughly 180 degrees apart, positioned directly opposite each other on the zodiac wheel. This aspect often involves signs of the same modality but opposing elements, such as Aries opposite Libra or Taurus opposite Scorpio. Oppositions create a push-pull dynamic, a tension between two energies that may feel conflicting but can also complement each other. This aspect highlights areas of life where you may encounter external challenges, relationships, or inner dilemmas that require balance, negotiation, and compromise. For example, a Sun opposite Moon aspect can indicate the need to balance personal identity with emotional needs, or independence with connection to others. A conjunction occurs when two planets are side by side, typically within 0 to 10 degrees of each other. In this aspect, the planet's energy merge and amplify, creating a strong, focused influence in the chart. Depending on the nature of the planets involved, this can be overpowering, intense, or sometimes overwhelming. For example, Sun conjunct Venus often enhances charm, creativity, and the natural ability to express love and beauty. But Mars conjunct Saturn may bring internal tension, creating delays, frustration, or a slow-burning drive that builds over time. A square occurs when two planets are approximately 90 degrees apart, typically in signs of the same modality but with incompatible elements, such as fire and water. This aspect creates friction, tension, and internal conflict. Squares are rarely smooth, they bring pressure and resistance that force growth. The planetary energies involved often clash, creating situations that demand action, compromise, or confrontation. Over time, this tension can lead to breakthroughs, discipline, and transformation. For example, the Moon square Venus may show emotional tension in relationships, a tug-of-war between the desire for affection and the need for emotional independence. A trine occurs when two planets are approximately 120 degrees apart, usually in the same element. It is considered one of the most harmonious and supportive aspects in astrology. Trines represent a natural flow of energy, talents, abilities, or inner resources that feel effortless or instinctive. The planets involved get along and work together easily, often without much internal conflict or conscious effort. For example, as we saw earlier, Moon trine Saturn suggests emotional stability, maturity, and the ability to stay grounded under pressure, a quiet strength that can be relied on. A sextile occurs when two planets are approximately 60 degrees apart, often in complementary elements. such as earth and water or fire and air, which are traditionally associated with feminine and masculine energies, respectively. Like the trine, the sextile is a harmonious aspect, but it is more subtle and opportunity-oriented. While a trine brings effortless ease, a sextile highlights areas of potential that require some conscious effort to fully activate. For example, Mercury sextile Jupiter can reflect a curious and optimistic mind, someone who thrives through learning, communication, and a big picture perspective, especially when they choose to engage with these strengths. In addition to the major aspects we've covered, there are also minor aspects like the quincunx, semi-sextile, and semi-square, which add more subtle layers and nuances to a birth chart. But to keep things simple, we won't be diving into them in this video. Astrological degrees are a fascinating and intricate topic. There are several theories about how they work, and astrologers don't always agree on which approach to use. Two of my personal favorites are the critical degrees theory and Nicholas Stojanovic degree theory. But for simplicity, in this video we'll focus on the three most commonly discussed degrees: 0 degrees, 15 degrees, and 29 degrees. First, let's clarify what degrees are. Each zodiac sign spans 30 degrees, which means the full zodiac wheel adds up to 360 degrees, a complete circle. But here's an important detail: there's no 30th degree of a sign. That's because 30 degrees of one sign is already 0 degrees of the next sign. So when we talk about degrees in astrology, we're really working with 0 degrees to 29 degrees in each sign. You might also see minutes listed next to degrees, like 0 degrees 59. Some astrologers pay close attention to these minute placements, but I personally focus mainly on the whole degree. So in this case, 0 degrees 59 would still be considered 0 degrees. Degree 0 is known as the initiator. This is the very beginning of a sign's energy, carrying raw and formed potential. It's strongly associated with new beginnings, impulsive action, and pioneering spirit. Planets at 0 degrees often feel like they're stepping into uncharted territory, expressing the sign's traits in a pure but undeveloped way. Because it marks the start of a sign, 0 degrees carries a sense of intensity and freshness. The energy is bold, vibrant, and full of potential, like a seed waiting to be nurtured and shaped. Degree 15 is known as the core expression. Located at the midpoint of a sign, 15 degrees represents the most balanced and concentrated expression of that sign's energy. Planets here tend to show stability, natural flow, and inner mastery. The energy is integrated and confident, reflecting the essence of the sign in a mature, refined way. It's like the sign's traits are in full bloom, expressed with clarity, ease, and purpose. Degree 29 is known as the anaretic degree. As the final degree of a sign, 29 degrees symbolizes completion, urgency, and karmic pressure. Planets here often carry a sense of intensity, prompting dramatic shifts or a push towards closure. It can feel like a last opportunity to fully embody the energy of the sign before moving on to the next, highlighting lessons that must be faced and resolved. The energy is concentrated, potent, and calls for decisive action or integration. Now going back to the birth chart analysis. In this chart, the moon is at 15 degrees 26 minutes in Aries, placing it right in the heart of the sign. This is considered more mature Aries energy, balanced, stable, and self-aware compared to the impulsiveness often seen in early degrees. Emotionally, this suggests someone who is learning to express passion and independence with confidence and control. Jupiter, retrograde and placed at 29 degrees in Aries in the 12th house, is a significant and complex marker in the chart. This is the anaretic degree, the final degree of the sign, which amplifies the Aries themes of courage, identity, and action. It can feel like the soul is under pressure to master these lessons in this lifetime. With Jupiter retrograde, that energy becomes more introspective, suggesting a path of growth that's deeply internal, spiritual, and often revealed through self-reflection. Adding to this Aries emphasis is the North Node in Aries, showing that mastering Aries energy is not just a theme, it's a soul's evolutionary direction. With this nodal placement, the individual is learning to become more assertive and self-directed, to establish healthy boundaries without guilt, and to trust their instincts over external validation. They are being called to step into leadership even when it feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable, and to embrace independence by taking bold steps on their own terms. This North Node often calls for a shift away from over-accommodation or people-pleasing and towards a life shaped by authenticity. However, this Aries North Node faces a challenge, a square with retrograde Neptune in Capricorn in the 8th house. This aspect can make it hard for the person to trust their instincts during uncertain or unclear situations, possibly leading to self-doubt and feelings of being lost. With that said, this North Node is in the 11th house and the Midheaven is in Aquarius, suggesting that this person's soul growth in this lifetime is connected to community, friendship, and collective goals. They are learning to assert their individuality while also contributing to groups, friendships, or humanitarian causes. This placement invites them to step confidently into their path while inspiring and connecting with others who share their ideals. Once again, if you want to dive deeper into the nodes in the Midheaven, check out my other video linked below. And that was an example of how to quickly read the birth chart, starting with the big three, the Sun, rising sign and moon, followed by the chart ruler, the Midheaven, and the nodes. Along the way, we look for important degrees and finally examine key aspects. In future videos, we'll go into more detail and explore other elements, so stay tuned. That's it for now. This concludes our analysis and overview of some of the key elements in the birth chart. Thank you for watching. I hope this exploration has offered valuable insights into the complexities of astrology. By understanding the interplay of houses, signs, planets, and aspects, you can gain a deeper awareness of yourself and your path forward. If you found this information helpful, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Your support truly helps this channel grow. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. See you soon!